well-funded litigation efforts that we have to fight every single day, which are offense and defense, coming after efforts like the Fields Fund, or coming after the Minority Business Development Agency that the president made permanent for the very first time in history, coming after the SBA and the record investments they're making in women-owned businesses and Black-owned businesses and Latino-owned businesses, Asian-owned businesses. And
it's permanent.
The MBDA is permanent. Yeah. So the president appointed the very first permanent undersecretary of MBDA under his tenure. So it's but in terms of wealth creation, a focus on home ownership as the president's commitment that he articulated in the State of the Union to get 2 million new homes built, and make sure that renters also have a way to afford to live in the cities in which they work and serve. This focus effort on cutting costs for everyday families, and we're about to go into the 4th of July holiday. A record 70 million people traveling this week. So you're talking about the efforts to cut gas. Gas is down $1.20, $1.40 since the Russia's invasion of Ukraine, because of the president's strategic moves, releasing some of the Northeastern gasoline reserves, and also just bit by bit, whether it's medical costs on insulin or capping costs for seniors at $2,000 a year, or really taking on grocers. I mean, we're talking about ways in which now we have Walmart and Target and others leading by example, cutting their costs because supply chains have been unsnarled, inflation's down by a third, prices should be coming down. And the president's been leading from the front on that. And then probably I guess one of the most significant ways I've heard from men and women all across the country of every background, but certainly from African Americans who have taken on a disproportionate amount of student debt. The president's leadership in relieving over $160 billion of student debt has been game changing. And you think about my parents sent my brother to college using home equity in their home. So creating more homeowners, creating more generational wealth, but at the very same time, unburdening so many families so people can think about becoming homeowners and investing in their children. But over 4 million people benefiting from the president's leadership in that way. It gives new meaning, I think, to the purpose of the Civil Rights Act in creating ladders of opportunity. Because we're not talking about equality of outcomes. We can't determine outcomes. We're just talking about equality of opportunity. Give me a shot. Give me an opportunity to live with my full potential. Give me an opportunity to use all the tools God given me, and I'll make a way.
Yeah, let me get in the door.
Yeah, that's it. I'll make a way, and you get me to the door, I might kick it down.
That's right. No, that's exactly what has to happen. And again, this is important news. We know, and this folks, what I'm about to say, predates even the election season. I mean, we're susceptible to social media, misinformation, disinformation, and it's like folk are running an op to make some of our young brothers resentful of the success of Black women in this administration and in other places. But they don't know that there are good things happening for them too.
Sure.
What is that something that concerns you in your position? Because that's kind of in your wheelhouse, trying to get the word out.
Sure.
Sisters and brothers, that some good things are happening, and we got to keep it going. Don't let folk tell you.
Sure.
Because some folk trying to take us back.
It's so interesting because you're right. It's the politics of division are very real, and the ability in the very fractured media environment in which we live right now to really hyper target people and in negative ways is really made life very difficult. Help me hate my neighbor. Help me hate people who are first generation immigrants. Good Lord, help me hate my sisters, my mother. I will say the accomplishments for Black women are very real, and I'm thankful that the president trusts Black women. He is trusted one to be his vice president and put the very first black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court, and indeed I'd say more black women on the courts of appeals than any other president in history combined. He also has appointed the very first African-American Secretary of Defense. He's also appointed the very first Deputy Secretary, black man, a black man, and Wale Adeyemo, the very first Deputy Secretary of Commerce, and Don Graves, only the second Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Charles Brown. If you follow data, and I think I'm a big believer that data matters. If you look at disaggregated data from the end of the pandemic to right now, you're not only talking about a 60% increase in black wealth, you're also talking about higher wage gains for black men than any other demographic. Over the last 3 years. We're seeing some strategic investments in equity, again, that we don't usually think about. Obviously, we know of the systemic challenges around criminal justice and the American justice system. So yeah, the president, under this president, vice president, we've changed the way in which the SBA even makes loans and investments. So those who've been pulled out of the American economic mainstream since before they finished puberty, and you think about the way that affects our community, can now apply for loans through the SBA.
Wow.
And so you think about all these ingenious brothers and that we know who because of decisions made when they're 14, 15, 16 years old, are now being pulled back in the American economic mainstream, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars being loaned. We're talking about changing the trajectory of not just individuals, but communities. And black men are benefiting significantly under this president's leadership. And we need to make sure we don't let anyone else pull the wool over our eyes and try to fool us into the nonsense that they're selling out there.
Yeah, and that's not nothing organic is going on, folks. These are folks who want to divide and conquer and cause confusion, especially in our community. So that's very important. What we got to do. We got to go, but I get in trouble for this all the time. Erica's back in here. Erica doing a good job.
She's amazing, and if I didn't say that, I'd be in trouble right now.
I know.
She's incredible. Rev, I know we got to go, but I would say this one last thing for folks who might sometimes feel dispirited based on what they hear or even some news that they don't like. I hope that we use days like this, 60th anniversary of the signing of the Civil Rights Act, to remember all those folks who came before us who gave everything for us to have the opportunities we have here. We sit in rooms like this. Yes, we went to school. We did all the things we're supposed to do and everything else. But we're in rooms like this literally because somebody came down. They marched, they prayed, they cried. Many like Meg Evans to give us these opportunities. And we can't take that in vain. Not only realize we're standing on those shoulders, but we're literally the shoulders that others are standing on right now. So it's up to each and every one of us to step up, make sure that we have our voices heard, and can tell people how to vote, but make sure we participate in the process. The franchise is too valuable and it's been paid for in blood.
The Director of the Office of Public Engagement, Senior Advisor to the President, and also, as I mentioned, and you and I have talked about this, trying to get some movement. Civil Rights Act would not have been passed without Clarence Mitchell. So we're talking about, I got to see talking about folks looking at you getting in trouble. I held up the Christmas party to talk to the president about this. It's like, yeah, man, Corinne said, you can't do that. You just can't, Mark. Y'all just can't go off and have a conversation, which we did. But we want to get a bus to Clarence Mitchell in the Capitol. And the president said that's something he would definitely support. So folks, stay tuned for that. We're going to try to get that done in good order while we can get it done. Steve Benjamin, also former mayor of Columbia, South. You ought to carry it where you go. I mean, that was James Brown introduction right there. She ran down the whole list.
Wait for my cape to come around now. So
this is a black man in a high position, y'all, doing some positive things. Spread the word. Here's the deal that's coming up. Y'all gonna let us know about that. And I said what I said to you about streaming that. Y'all should get that out on social. If y'all need some help with that, just let me know. I'll push it.
I appreciate you.
Bless you, brother. Good to see you, man. All right, Steve Benjamin, folks, here with us on this anniversary, the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, the 99th anniversary, centennial next year, brother, for Meg Evans.
I love it.
We're going to celebrate that. As we continue our live broadcast here, thank you. Come right on. Continue our live broadcast here from the EOP, ladies and gentlemen, MIP at the EOP. And we're looking at all of the important ways the Civil Rights Act has made a difference and how this administration is doing all it can to see to it that many of these gains continue, that we gain more, and that we make even more accomplishments in this hour, in this critical time. An issue that obviously is getting even more attention and more traction as well as should. We're broadcasting on the NNPA networks and channels as well. As you all know, the president of the NNPA is the Reverend Dr. Benjamin F. Chavez Jr., who just spent last week with Environmental Protection Agency's Michael Regan in Wilmington, North Carolina. As you all know, Dr. Chavez coined the term environmental justice and environmental racism. And we were just talking about some of the work that he's doing and the work that he's doing in particular with the EPA. But we are here on that topic as well with the chair of the Council on Environmental Quality, Brenda Mallory is here with us. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for, first of all, for doing this and for giving me a chance to talk about our work.
Well, thank you for you all letting me in the building. Y'all have to let me in here. Now, all this time, normally I'm running in and out of here, and then I avoid staff and talk to principals like I shouldn't, but now I talk to principals legitimately.
Yeah.
Normally out here, I'm supposed to, people don't like when I do that. But how are you?
I'm doing great.
Where are you from? I always like to know where
I'm from Waterbury, Connecticut originally, but I've been in the DC area now since 1985.
So talk to us about the Council on Environmental Quality and some of the things you all have.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Council on Environmental Quality is sort of a long-standing environmental office in the White House. And under this administration, the president has us very focused on climate change, conservation, environmental justice, and just making sure that the federal government writ large is advancing all of the goals that he has across its own operations.
When we talk about environmental justice, that's a civil right itself, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we think of the environmental justice work as really being kind of growing out of the civil rights efforts that started. Like we have a whole history of moving towards all people being treated in, equally, and that using that, we have to make sure that all of the benefits of our society, environmental benefits in this case, actually have a positive impact on all of the communities.
What is the state of environmental justice, would you say?
I would say we have a lot of work to do.
Okay.
I would say we have a long history of really not being focused on making sure that all communities have clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment. And as a result, we have many communities out there who are experiencing real hardship and disadvantage and being exposed to, toxic chemicals. And so we've been very focused on trying to deal with some of those legacy issues, but also as we plan for the kind of new economy, for this new clean energy economy, to actually have that front and center as we think about these communities.
Will that new clean energy economy offer jobs and opportunities to people who otherwise have been left out of so many other opportunities?
Absolutely. And again, this president and vice president have both been so intentional about that. And so if you look at the record, which is on the White House .gov site, which I tell everyone that they should go to, but you can see how there's been improvements on economic benefits, how there's been growth in availability of jobs to people. We've already created 15 million jobs overall, but 2 to 3 million of those have gone to African Americans. So there's a number of progress things that we've already done. But as we think about the clean energy economy, we want to make sure that as we are building this new industry, that we're building in a way that thinks about the impacts of the people.
A lot of environmental justice or environmental racism has to do with location.
Yes.
Tell us about you all's work in that regard. Are you all able to deal with that, move things out of places they never should have been in the first place, and stop things from going in places they shouldn't go into?
Yeah, so that gets complicated only because the federal government doesn't control everything. But I think in those places that we do control things, I think we're really trying to focus on how do we make sure that the communities actually benefit from whatever it is that the activity is that's going on. And that is hard. That is really hard. Some of that has to be done with the state and local communities as well. But as we are planning, I think it's important and incumbent upon us to be like front and center talking about how do we make sure there are benefits for the communities.
What are some things you're trying to accomplish, Madam Chair, before the end of this year?
Yeah, I mean, so since the president gave us a goal coming in of really setting up an environmental justice infrastructure all across the federal government, I think we're trying to make sure that some of those pillars are in place so that we're able to not only have all of the agencies moving forward with environmental justice being a priority, but be able to track how they're doing and hold the agencies accountable for what has occurred. So those are some pillars that we're trying to make sure are in place through an environmental justice strategic plan. The president put in place a new executive order or a revised executive order on environmental justice, which, set forth, some requirements that looking more at cumulative impacts, looking more at studies that can see what the health of people are. So those are things that are really important. And I think about the institutionalization of environmental justice. But then one of the, big areas in which the administration is actually sending out dollars are to make sure that there are kind of green spaces in all communities, because we now know that it's not just a nice to have, it's a must have, because it helps lower the temperatures, it helps with flooding, it helps with ensuring that some of the air pollution is dealt with. And so those dollars are going out, and we have been going out with the Secretary of Agriculture and others to actually just lift up that information because people don't know about it. And then I think, finally, just making sure that as our federal agencies are moving forward on our sustainability program, and that's the program that we're like the federal government actually holds up to the same standards that we're asking everyone else to hold up to, that includes environmental justice as a consideration, so that's also an important principle in the work.
Yeah, no, that is very important. Access to clean water as well. Talk to us about that and what progress is being made there. Again,
that's another area where the president came in with really intentional about that. And so we've focused on lead pipes. There's been lead pipes. He's committed to having 100% of the lead pipes removed over the next decade. So we've been going out and making sure in individual communities that change is occurring. He's also been focused on PFAS contamination, which is a short term for perfluorochloroalkyl chemical, which we know is persistent in a lot of the waters, and actually providing funding that is leading, dealing with the kind of the presence of that in communities. EPA actually issued a new drinking water standard that's specifically focused on PFAS, and that's one way in which we're trying to sort of get at that. So, water is important on those elements, but it's also important from just the perspective of how do we make sure that what the sources that are leading to drinking water are also clean? And so one of the efforts that we've been running out of the White House is, a focus on freshwater protection, because the Supreme Court issued a really harmful decision last year called the Sackett decision. And that decision actually reduces the federal control over what waters can be protected. And so we're trying to really make sure people understand that, because it does lead to most of the drinking water in this country.
Yeah. And then there's the issue of clean air. I had a guest on recently who suffers from COPD in a community where there's still all these smokestacks.
Yeah.
We still have that going on.
Yeah, no, and again, I think that the kind of industry that built the country has also left scars. And I think that's why it's been so important to this president, as we're thinking about this clean energy economy, to try to address that upfront in the planning, right? EPA also has issued a number of rules this year that are very much focused on the toxins in air, and ensuring that, like, particularly fence-line communities, that's a front and center issue. But that's a place where we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Lastly, when we talk about climate change, and over the years, we've heard a lot of alarms. I don't hear as many anymore about how far we are behind the ball in being prepared. what do you think now in terms of particularly this nation's preparation and what this administration has been doing? Have we caught up some so that we may be a little bit safer? When is it? And somebody, I was trying to tell somebody the other day, I think this administration decided when all SUVs need to be electric, well, there's a year for that. But that's the kind of stuff that this administration has been doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more like it's more like about introducing a number of new technologies to address the electric vehicles is one in which we're introducing new technologies. There's nothing that says all have to be done at a particular date, but the critical point is that we know that climate change has to be approached from across all sectors. So it's not just transportation. It's also looking at the energy sources. It's also looking at the efforts that we're making to shore up for the impacts that we know are going to occur. Right. So that's a really important approach. And I would say we're making progress, but that progress actually has to be accelerated. We need to be doing more in order to meet the standards that we know from the scientists are impacting, are going to impact us from climate change. That's why all of the extreme weather events that we're seeing all across the country, those are the evidence of the work that we need to do in order to try to get ahead of it. And it is both to help the communities who are currently being impacted, but also to reduce the emissions so that we can be in a better position.
All right. This is all a good word. She is the chair of the Council on Environmental Quality. Brenda Maller, where'd you go to school?
I went to Columbia Law School and Yale undergrad.
Okay, very good. Good to see you.
You as well.
Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, you too.
And this important council as well. We need it. Folks, we are here recognizing, and the right to clean air and water is a civil right, as we talk about civil rights. So that's important as well. Good to see you all. Thank you for stopping by. Yeah, that's a civil right, y'all. And we want to be sure that that right is protected and upheld. As I was saying, Michael Regan, the EPA director, was out all last week with Dr. Chavis, and they were touring some waterways in North Carolina to address and take a look at some of the things that are taking place there, and some of the ways in which these areas are really under, to some degree, dire straits. All right. 60th anniversary Civil Rights Act, 100th anniversary of Medgar Evers' birth. We are here in the White House. Who would have thought that we would be in the White House? We meaning the universal we, in 1964, just invited in here to sit in the conference room of the Secretary of War. I'm gonna look some stuff up on that while we take a break, because I'm kind of curious about this history in the room. This is very interesting. We will take another break, and then we'll have another guest join. So just come back around the top of the hour. We'll be talking to the Acting Secretary of the Department of Labor, and then we're going to round the afternoon off with Corinne Jean-Pierre, the White House Press Secretary. So we are looking forward to that as well. And yeah, folks, stick around. Same channels, we're on all our social media. So be sure to come back and check us out.